So I would like to invite my team. So please come on the stage. So. Ognjen Glavonić is the producer of the film. Lumic is the sound designer of the film. Sophia is the co-producer of the film. And Stephanie is the producer of the film. Thanks. So if you guys want to stick for the Q&A, it will be cool. If you don't want, it's okay. So thank you all for working on this film from me, from the heart. It's really hard.
So, to begin with, I know that you've been developing a fiction film for several years now that's based on the same story that appears in this film. And so I wanted to ask you to begin with, why has this film appeared first, if you've been working on the other film for longer? And also maybe what's the difference in approach when telling the same story as a fiction and as a documentary?
Well, yes, I'm working on a fiction film about the same topic, but different film, for 6 years now. And of course, the problem is that for these 6 years I had real trouble finding the financing for it. And to make this kind of film is much cheaper and easier. And in a way I decided, because I was researching a lot, finding more and more information about the story, I decided that I have to put it outside of the planned fiction film, which had a different structure, and it was all, the script is over for 3 years now, so I didn't want to pollute it with different information. So I left them aside, and then I realized I can make a film with them, without other stories. And yeah, and to keep myself occupied while dealing with waiting and for the money and writing the projects and going to markets and such stuff, I decided I have to have something to keep me in filmmaking form, so to say.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, so then we started working on this film and we edited for 10 months, so we didn't have a deadline. Actually we had it, but we broke it a lot of times. So, yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess this also relates to both films on some level, but how did you first find out about the story of the truck being driven through what was then Yugoslavia at the time? And I mean, was it something you stumbled across? Was it something you were actively looking for?
Well, no, I wasn't looking for, because I didn't know anything about it. I was like, you know, you're on internet, you're going from one link to another, and then you stumble upon something like that. And it was like 7 years ago, I was still studying, then I found a text about the objects that were found in the ground. And then I read the testimony of one of the drivers, and that was the beginning of the fiction film, actually, because the fiction film is about the driver, and it's kind of a story from road movie from one point to another. And yeah, I wanted to do it as a student film, like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but yeah, I realized it's not going to happen. And then when I finished university, I knew that this is going to be the first thing I want to work on for my first feature-length fiction film.
And as you were continuing the research process, I mean, obviously it's a subject which is, I mean, maybe difficult to find information about. I imagine a lot of the materials or a lot of the stuff you would need to find out is maybe not so hard to find. How did you progress with the actual research phase? I mean, where were you looking? How were you kind of moving forward? How are you finding the things that you needed to find?
Basically, I Googled a lot. And yeah, and I had a lot of, for example, the stories you hear are from the testimonies that happened in the Hague Tribunal, like the trials of some men. And basically they were broadcast in televisions in Serbia. Of course, nobody watched it because it was too boring and people didn't want to hear that stuff. And then the biggest help was when I found the whole testimonies on DVDs, and then I had to, with my editor, go through 400 of hours of testimonies and choose the persons and stories. And that's how I learned a lot also.
I can imagine it's a very big job to go through that wealth of
Yes,
material.
yes.
Any questions from the audience at all?
Thank you very much, Mr. Manovic, for a very impressive film.
Thank you.
Yes, it's practically a genocide we have been witnessing in this 1.5 hour. A genocide about which practically nobody in Europe knows anything. I'm interested in all this history, and I myself did know very little. A question, how many bodies have been found? Because we heard here about 750 only on one side. Second, was this your conscious decision not to show any people, any witnesses, or it was just born out of the reality because you couldn't find anyone?
So, first of all, to use the term genocide is something I'm not going to go into, because it's not my, how to say, because, you know, in my country and in our region you have a lot of disagreement about everything, so of course about the meaning of some words. And yeah, I don't want to speak about if this is a genocide or not. I don't want to go into it. It's a horrible crime, and I'm not going to be the one to say some term that I maybe don't understand from a law point of view. And it's basically a law point of view. But as for the other questions, you had the thing that I didn't want to focus in this film are the other mass graves that were found in Serbia. So Batenica is just the biggest one, and the only one found next to the capital city. You had a mass grave in the east of Serbia, you had a mass grave on the west of Serbia near the Peručac Lake, and the latest to be found is on the border with Kosovo, but it's not Kosovo and Serbia. And all in all, I think it was more than 1,300 bodies. But that were only the bodies that were buried. You have to understand that some testimonies were also about burning the bodies in the factories in Kosovo and in Serbia. And those details you can never find the material, the documents. So it's something that I couldn't use also. And the decision to not use the faces, actually we had the first version of the film which was like 4 hours. And it had a lot of archive materials, and it had a lot of politicians from the trials. And it also had a lot of faces from those people, because sometimes in the voice you cannot see or hear something that you can see in the face. But then me and my editor worked a little book of rules, and all of it got out. So we decided not to use any face, just the stories, and not to use politicians, just the people who witnessed and saw this with their own eyes or touched it with their hands.
Any more questions from the audience? In the middle?
Hello. My name is Erard. I'm actually coming from Kosovo, from Pristina. I traveled here just to see this movie.
Thanks.
I congratulate you. It's a really good, true-telling story. I have also been a witness to one of these crimes, not the biggest, the one of Mr. Berisha, but I witnessed some minor one to say where 4 people were dead and killed. I would like just to talk about that genocide term, because you decided not to use it, and it's okay if you don't use it. But my question would be, since after all these years, it's 17 years now, you don't use that term, and you discuss about things like people not agreeing in both sides of a border, how will this movie be accepted in your country?
I think you know the answer to that question. And I think that everybody knows the answer to the question. But basically, when we started working on this film, we had a lot of ideas about using a lot of witnesses from Kosovo, of Albanian origin. But I really wanted to hear the Serbians talking about this thing in Serbian, And that is what, for me, it is important that this film be seen in Serbia.
Will it be shown?
Yes, it will be shown. We are organizing screenings in March. For now, it's 6 cities. We will also screen it in Kosovo, in Pristina, but it will be screened in Belgrade. It will be screened in Novi Sad, in Subotica, in Pančevo. So I think that, of course, if somebody doesn't stop it or block it. But that's why I don't want to go into those terms, especially because those terms, the term genocide is being used a lot about other crime in Srebrenica. And I really don't feel competent to speak about it, As for the other stories, and it's also something from the previous question, about the other crimes, crimes in Kosovo where the people were found in Batica, and why we didn't use more recorded interviews, is, of course, a lot of people didn't want to speak about it, and one of the guys they really wanted to use, you maybe know him, Zoran Rašković, who is one of the only ones who spoke openly about what he was part of in Serbia, and he was protected witness there, but he stopped being protected witness. He didn't want to speak, so it was a real big problem to find people from other crimes that happened in Kosovo to speak about it.
Is this the same Zoran the lady mentioned, or is another Zoran?
No, it's another Zoran. It's another Zoran, yes.
Anyone else from the audience?
Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to say that I didn't miss any faces in the film, because the pictures and the camera work of the different locations were seemed to be very sensitive to me. That's the reason for my question to you is, are the places and locations which we see during while the narrative is rolling in the off, are they reliable in relation to the events which are described in the film?
Thank you. A lot of the places you see are the actual places where the crimes happened, but also there are a lot of landscapes that I just thought would fit the atmosphere of the film. And at that time, we didn't have the testimonies first. We first had the images, and then I started to edit the voices and stories. So then, in the end, we started to connect them. And there's a lot of landscapes that are not in any way connected to the crimes, but I just felt they fit the tone and the atmosphere, and I didn't want to use it as an illustration or as a, metaphor,
But it was Pristina and it was prison.
Yes, it was Pristina. It was Pristina and it was Suva Reka, and actually,
In a whole,
yes, and actually the film was possible when we got the permit to shoot at the actual police training camp where the mass grave was, and that is the actual place. So when we got there to shoot, the guy said yes, it happened. So it's not actually that we discovered something, it's just that this film is trying to speak about something that happened, that was spoke only for a short time in 2001, and then again closed and buried in silence. And so the people who work there, who go to work there, were not the same people who were there 17 years ago, but they had their own different reasons, and yeah. But we didn't have problems to shoot there. That's the. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes.
In the middle?
Well, first, thank you for this film. I think it's a very important film, especially considering the current political climate as well. But my question to you is, there have been attempts to speak about these issues in Serbia before, and there were some brave filmmakers who were trying to do this, but it seemed like it was always inadequate. And there was something that stuck with me in film, this idea of code of silence. It seems like that there was this, and still is, this code of silence, even in cinema, with filmmakers.
Everywhere.
And this is not only maybe in Serbia, also Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, there's this. And I think there needs to be more courage, there need to be more films like this. And do you feel, as a filmmaker, that maybe it's time that cinema starts addressing this directly in a way that you've just done?
I hope so. I think that we should point the camera to ourselves and not always to another. And every nation is trying to victimize themselves, and all our countries are based on not myths but mythomanias, and something that I personally wanted to fight against with this film. You know, against the lie that's being shown as the truth. And yeah, I cannot give advices to other people, but this is only my way of dealing with the things and country in which I live in. And I think this film has more to do with Belgrade than it has to do with Kosovo.
The lady over here on the left.
Thank you. Thank you for the film.
Thank you.
I'm happy that I've seen it.
Thank you.
For your future, I would like to know, does this film put you in any kind of danger or obstacles for your future work?
We'll see. As I said, of course I expected it. By choosing this subject, it's not going to be easy to find the money for this in Serbia, but I kind of have faith in my own stories and films, and we'll see. I really don't know. I mean, this is my second documentary that I made with a really low budget, and as the things are now with my fiction film, I'm also going to make it without the money from Serbia, but I will make it because it's the only way. I don't know. And for the future films, I really don't plan to deal with this subject anymore, and it's going to be different, and yeah, we'll see. I don't know. And for the safety, I really don't think that this film is that dangerous, or that anybody in Serbia is that interested in culture and films, or that they will find it dangerous. And yeah, you always have idiots everywhere, so someone may... I'm only scared about people speaking about the film without seeing it. And that's the biggest problem that will happen, because everybody will have opinion without even seeing it or without wanting to see it, because they know what it is, and they don't. So,
Thank you
yeah.
very much. Good luck.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. Anyone else? I mean, one more question for me then, maybe? I mean, as this film closely relates to the next film, I just wanted to find out how far along you are with the fiction film. What's the kind of, how close are you to shooting? What's the kind of the next station would be?
So yeah, we are now looking for the ending of financing. So basically we got money from Platz for the development. We then got some money from the Post Republic for the post-production. Then we got the money from the CNC for Cinemas du Monde for production. Then we got Vision Sud-Est, a grant. But basically we still need the money for production and for the cheapest possible production. And we'll see, we'll try some different things until November, when I plan to start shooting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.